Welcome back to Aquí, Soñamos. I'm here with Ashley. She is going to be our guest today. Even though she's our host, she wants to act like a guest. Um,
No, you said you wanted to interview me, and I said, okay.
I do because I feel like
I have no idea what you're gonna ask me. I'm excited. I
nothing bad. I also didn't
know.
prep questions, so this might just be another conversation.
Okay.
Um, but because I feel like in the intro episode, I don't think we talked a lot about your story. I think we talk about a lot of your goals, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
talk a lot about how you got to where you are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you making that face?
Where I am, like, in what aspects?
In all aspects of your life.
Okay, so I'll wait for the specific questions.
Okay.
First of
So
all, as right off the back, I feel like I
is
maybe
it wait,
don't.
wait, wait, wait. Time out, time out, time out. Is it back or bat?
It is bat, like
Okay.
baseball
Just
bat.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Right off the bat, I will say that like sometimes I feel like my story is not that great because I don't feel like okay. I know, no negative self talk with it, right? But I feel like sometimes I haven't accomplished that much great stuff, so that the story is kind of like not worth telling yet, right? Um,
Oh,
but hey, this will be a episode to look back on whenever we're like accomplishing stuff out here and be like, oh,
other
remember that one
things.
episode? Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
other things out here, yes. But go ahead. So like, it may be a really good long episode, and it may be a 15-minute episode. We'll see how it goes.
It's not going to be a 15-minute episode. I will ask you more questions to make sure that it's not a 15-minute episode.
I will try my
Um,
very best to answer these questions.
I think before we start,
Mm-hmm.
what I would like to say is that even though you might feel like you haven't accomplished something, I think that you have.
Mm-hmm.
I am so proud to be your friend and to see you on this journey and see the growth. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope that I continue to support you and
I hope you
hopefully,
do too.
you continue to grow. I think you just, girl, like looking back at like when I met you. Okay, so let's start there. Like when I met you in
Mm-hmm.
what,
19.
2019? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel has changed besides your living situation?
Mm-hmm.
And what has changed within yourself? I guess would
Hmm.
be the appropriate answer or question.
So let's let me start at how I ended up in California, right? Um,
Yes.
so I guess I'll start. It's 2019, so I would have been 24. So I would have been 24 at the
Yeah.
time. Um, okay, so after high school, I attempted to go to college, right? I found out very quickly that nobody is calling my mom to tell her when I don't go to class. So I stopped going to class, right? A lot.
Okay.
And so that very first year of college, the only class for some reason that I went to was speech, and I got an A in speech, right?
Okay.
That's the only class I finished that semester. But I just stopped going to school,
Okay.
right? Um, I started working full time where I was working Academy, which is like a sporting goods store. Um, and so there were a few times that I would go back to school, but I would just stop going, right?
Hmm.
Um, I got another job, like customer service, right? And that job, okay, okay, I'm just gonna tell you my whole life story right now. So
Good.
from from Academy, I got a job working for Texas DPS, which is like your DMV. It's where you do the driver's license stuff, not the car stuff. That's separate here. This was just like driver's license. Okay,
Okay.
so I was there for about a year, and
Okay.
then I don't know if my parents know about this. I got a I'm
Oh,
so ashamed to say this. I got I believe, see, these numbers are going to vary greatly. I don't know if it was five or $15,000 loan. Okay, from a bank. All right, to not make me feel so bad, let's say five. Okay, so
okay.
I'm like 21. I got a $5,000 loan,
For
right?
what?
And I'll explain. I've always wanted to be able to not have to work and focus full time on music. Okay?
Okay.
So I quit that DPS job and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do Uber and Lyft because I was doing it a little bit on the side, right?
Okay.
I'm just gonna do Uber and Lyft, blah blah blah, but I'm just gonna use this money that I got as a loan to support myself, right? And
Mhm.
by support myself, I was still living at my parents' house, but I meant car payment, insurance, I pay my dad a little bit of rent, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So those, it's not like I had a mortgage or anything, right? So those small bills, I was gonna use that loan money to support myself, okay?
Okay.
I think it was I quit in September, right? And
From
September
DPSS.
from DPS, yeah,
DPS. Okay.
yeah, Department of Public Safety. And I didn't have an actual quote unquote job from September, October, and November, right? And within that time, I do think that that's the only time in my life that I have actually committed to music full time.
Okay.
Um, and I will say that during those 3 months, I did like produce a full song, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Which is something like I always just start them and then stop working on them and whatnot, right? So within those 3 months, I do feel like I had learned and actually made a full project, full a few of them, right?
Okay.
Um, but then I'm guessing the money was running out or whatever, and I got a job working at a AAA call center. Okay, like
Okay.
thank you for calling AAA. How may I help you?
Uh huh.
Hey, I have a flat tire, right? Um, and I worked at the call center, and I was there for from December of 2017 until October of 2018. Okay,
Okay.
so a little bit under a year. And I ended up absolutely hating that job because it was very like robot, right? Like you
Mhm.
have to
You
stick
had
to
a
the same
script.
script.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same script every single call. It
Mhm.
was it was just it was just it was just not me. And you know how like in the first episodes we were talking about like I feel like I'm destined for greatness, you too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It just really feel like I feel like I'm so far from what I feel like I could be doing, right?
Yeah. Right.
So ended up hating that job, quit, ended up hating that job, okay?
Okay.
Around my birthday, which is October 16th, every single year, I think it's funny, I always end up having some sort of like life review, and something kind of always ends up changing, right?
Right.
My last birthday, October 16th, I told you about, hey, let's do this podcast November 1st or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the big change last year. But around my birthday of that 2018, sorry, I was like, I need to quit my job. And one of the guys that I worked with at AAA was like, oh, like I'm gonna go get my CDL license, right?
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever, right?
Uh huh.
So my dad has worked in logistics, transportation, basically his whole life as well, right?
Mhm.
So he works with truck drivers, right? And I was like, okay, like sure. So I start looking. You always Google, how much can you make as a truck driver? Blah 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 blah, right?
Mhm.
And it was like saying like, oh, you can make like 70K, whatever, right? And I was like, oh, 70K, that's really good, right?
Mhm.
So I was just like, fuck it. I looked for like CDL schools in my area. Found one that actually would pay you while you were in school. It wouldn't pay you like a whole lot, but it would pay you
But it
like,
would pay you something.
yeah, it would pay you. And it was a 4 week program, right? So I was like, you know what? I have some money saved up that I could pay my bills for that month.
Mhm.
Um, and then the money that I make from them will just be a little bit extra money. So I quit. I applied. they said, "Hey, you're approved. Like, when can you start?" Because they start classes every Monday. And I
Mhm.
said, "Let's start Monday." I quit the AAA job that Friday, right? I literally like, thank God, like my manager wasn't there, because like at the end of my shift, I just boop 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 packed up my headset and left it on his desk, sticky note, "Hey, I quit." Okay, that's the only job I've ever like straight quit, right? Because I'll typically give a 2 weeks notice with it, right?
Right.
But that's the only bridge I did not mind burning, because I was like, I
I'm
paid
never
this
going
bridge.
back.
Yes,
Yeah.
never going there. Um, so started CDL school,
Okay.
right? Um, and within the school, I feel like they really did a good job teaching, because they teach you like how to like physically map with like a book, an atlas, right? Not just rely on GPS, right? So it was a 4 week program. I was doing really good. I was getting along really well with the
Mhm.
instructors and whatnot. And I was doing really good. So you basically start off in classroom for like a week, and you get your
Okay.
permit,
Okay.
which they pay for, and then you start actually being able to drive the truck with an instructor beside you, right?
Okay. Cool.
And yeah, so some of the trucks that they have were like really old, right? And so I've never driven a big truck before, right?
Mhm.
And some of those older trucks were like really like the iconic, maybe that you see like the really big steering wheel where you had to be like hands so far apart. And so getting used to the steering wheel and working the pedals and whatnot, and it was automatic. Okay, so it doesn't have. I don't know how to drive the truck with like the gears of the shifting and whatnot. Okay, whatever. But and like one of the little training things that they would have us do,
Mhm.
like if you don't apply enough pressure, the truck will kind of start like shaking a lot. But if you apply enough pressure, it'll be smooth, right?
Okay.
And so I was struggling with finding that sweet spot of like putting the right amount of pressure, right?
Uh-huh.
Because you also don't want to floor it, because then don't floor it, right? So
I guess I would have
I
floored
did
it, but sure.
I did my little training, and the instructor was like, "You're gonna have to figure out how to like you're gonna have to figure that out, right? Because you're not gonna be able to move on unless you figure that out, right?" And
Mhm.
I was just like, "Okay, okay." But like whenever he said that, I was in my mind thinking like, I don't have a plan B. Like I quit my job. I need to be able to start making money next month. Like I don't have a plan B, right? So
Yeah.
continued through the course. I ended up doing really well. When it was time to test, which they do their testing themselves, you don't go through the state. Like they are certified to do the testing, and then
Oh.
the state
Uh-huh.
accepts their results. um, the first time I did really good. Oh, no, no, no. So they test you on backing first, and you have to back up. This is truck and trailer, okay? So 73 feet of a vehicle, okay?
Okay.
Straight line back, which is just backing up straight,
Okay.
right? Parallel, and offset, which is, if I can describe this visually well, it's like, let's say you have 3 lanes of traffic, right?
Okay.
And you're starting off in the middle lane, and when you back up, you have to finish in the right lane, right? So you're kind of backing up to the side a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so I was able to do two of those, and in one of them, I wasn't able to do it. So I had to retest, right?
Okay.
Second time, second time I retested, passed everything with flying colors, right? So you get your CDL, and then you go train with somebody over the road, right? So out for 2 weeks, home for like 2 or 3 days, for 4 weeks, okay? And so went through those 4 weeks, and then went out on my own, right? Um, the company that I used to work for, they would go to like various different states,
Mhm.
mainly like mid, is it called Mid East is like over there, but anyways, Texas, Colorado, Nebraska, Arkansas, Indiana, whatever, right? The middle of the
Mhm.
United States, right?
Mhm.
um and when I started being on my own, I think it was like the first 2 weeks or whatever, because I started on my own in January. And I think I was in Indiana at a truck stop in the bathroom, and I think I just started crying, and I was like, I can't do this, right? Like I can't do this. Like I don't like this, blah 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 blah, right? I was like crying in the bathroom, and I texted my mom, I was like, I don't know if I can do this, blah 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 blah, blah,
Mhm.
right? I don't remember what made me just be like stick with it or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But I stuck with it, right? Um, and I ended up starting to be a trainer with that company. And as a trainer, whenever I would have a trainee, I'd be making around like 17 to 2100s after taxes a week, right? So I was
Okay.
like, that's really fucking good money, right?
Yeah.
So I started saving up, and made sure like my debt was paid off and I didn't really owe anybody anything besides like my car.
Mhm.
Um, and so I started driving in January and went to California for the first time that May, right? And I had always had like this dream of living in California, right?
Mhm.
Um, went to California for the first time that May, and I went with somebody that I used to be friends with to a BTS concert, right? The Korean K-pop band.
Okay. I
Um,
didn't know that.
and we went. The reason for the trip was that concert. And then we went to Disney, sightseeing, whatever, right? And I was just like, I love it here, right?
Mhm.
Um, in September, I went back with my sister, right? Went to Disney, and I was like, I really love it here, right? And I've always been the type of person to where like everybody says California's so expensive, but I've always wondered like I understand that California's so expensive, but California has majority of its population who are not rich and they are able to afford to live there. So I'm like, I feel like I'd be able to figure it out. Okay. So my birthday came around,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I'm gonna, I have some money saved up. You know what? I'm gonna apply to like a music production school in California, and I'm gonna move out there. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Um, that was like a 2 or 3 week decision from like I'm doing this to it's happening. I'm driving out to California with my stuff, right? Um, so that takes us to the point of me moving to California. November 11th, 2019 was the day that I arrived. Um, and I drove out there with my grandma because I don't think my dad wanted me to drive out there alone. And we made it like a no rush drive. We stopped in Albuquerque, in Vegas for like the night, and then I went out to Long Beach where I was going to be staying. Um, and I vividly remember, obviously, things have not come out as they were planned, right?
Right.
Um, but I remember my dad saying whenever I left, he said something along the lines of like, you're doing what you have to do, right? Like kind of like you're gonna go out there, it's gonna be a struggle, but you know that what you're chasing requires struggle, okay?
Right.
So went out there, right? Got to California. Um, I got there in November, and that's when I met you. And my life was very much kind of just like chilling. I was supposed to be doing Lyft for money, but like I had some money saved up, so I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna worry about that. My bills at that point were like maybe $400, right? So I'm
Mhm.
like, I can do Lyft a week to 2 weeks a month, and then like the rest of the time I don't have to do it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I went out there for that music production school, right? I went to go tour it, right? And I don't think I was actually ready to pop the bubble at that time, right?
Uh-huh.
Because
To
I
pop.
remember, yeah, I remember one of the things that the guy who did my tour was saying was like, yeah, like we teach you how to do this, that, whatever, 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 and we also have like a lesson that's gonna be where every single person has to like make and sing on a song, right? And I was like, I don't sing, right? I was trying to tell myself like it's not going to be judged on how well you sing. It's going to be judged on like the production of what you make, whatever, right? But just like I don't
So
sing, I
that
was really
one
scared of that.
thing
Mhm.
discouraged you
Mhm.
from
So,
going through with the school?
mhm. So, and I remember because to sign up for the school, they typically want you to do the tour first. And I was like, hey, I emailed them. I was like, hey, I live in Texas. I'm gonna be moving out, but like I really like what your school has to offer. Like I'll pay the enrollment fee, whatever, right? I just
Mhm.
like I want to enroll. I'll tour when I get out there, right?
Mhm.
And they're like, okay, no problem, right? They'll let me do it, right? But yeah, that one thing was like it scared me to the point where like I never went to the school, right? Um, so
I did not
November,
know that.
yeah, so November because I moved out to California because I felt like it was going to be a better place to chase my dream and make it happen, right?
Okay.
Always the dream of like, oh, LA is full of dreamers, right? The stereotype, right? Right?
Mhm.
You go to LA to make your dreams come true, right? And
Yeah.
I wanted to be a believer in that, right?
Right.
Not only because like I understand a lot of more stuff happens out there, but like also I love the weather, I love palm trees, I love that it's by the coast. Like I just wanted to be there, right?
Right.
Um so I chose to believe that, right?
Right.
So in November I didn't end up going to school. I was like, it's okay, like I still have like my computer and stuff, I can still work on making music, whatnot, right? Um Never ended up really doing that.
You
And
didn't.
I feel
Why?
like because I didn't know I didn't really know how, one, which was gonna be the reason for the school, right? Um and I know that I hit like a little depressed phase out there because most of my time from like mid November to end of December was
Alone.
very much yes. And I remember, I know you know, and I don't know how to visually describe this, but where I was staying was a long term Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
And I was staying in a little camper at
Mhm.
the end of somebody's driveway, right?
Yeah.
And the woman, she was really cool. She was really nice. I think I'd pay her $500 a month, right, to be
Mhm.
living there, right? And I'm like, you know what, $500 a month to be living in California, that's a steal, right? Um, but the camper was literally like you go up the little steps, right,
Mhm.
and there's a very tiny little closet. There's the very small little bathroom and shower. And then there's like a little counter with like a sink and whatnot, and then at the
Mhm.
end is the bed. There's a little booth area with a small table, right? It's very small, right?
Yeah.
Like my grandma stayed with me like 2 nights there, and it was tight for us too, right? um but that's where I was living, right? And I just remember a lot of that time being I was just eating and sleeping and TikTok. Okay, I got addicted to TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Eating, sleeping, TikTok, and this was all pre-COVID. Damn! Oh my god, it's crazy to think about this stuff, right? So it was all pre-COVID. Eating, sleeping, TikTok. That's literally what I would do, right?
Yeah.
I was doing Lyft here and there, but I didn't really have a job, right? And I remember reaching that point of like, okay, I have $500 left, right? I can either, and I remember I was hanging out with you, and we went to like the Long Beach Convention Center place, right? And because we have pictures of it, and then I was like just talking to you. I'm like, I have $500. I can either pay my rent for January, or I have enough money to make it home, right? Pack it up, make it home, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I I I'm I know that within December I was applying for driving jobs. Um and oh, here's the
You
thing.
missed.
The school didn't start in November. The school started in January, okay?
Yeah.
So I didn't have school November through December.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
I started applying for jobs in December,
Mhm.
and I was trying to find a job where I would be at home on Thursdays because the school was supposed to be on Thursdays.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so I ended up interviewing with a couple of companies, one of the companies being JB Hunt, right? And
Mhm.
it was gonna be delivering at 99 cent only stores, right?
Mhm.
Um, and in the initial interview, I had thought that they said that it would be driver unload, which would be like me in the trailer unloading the boxes into the stores, right? And I'm like, but the time came where that $500 decision, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I called back and I was like, "Hey, can you tell me again about this job?" And she was like, "Yeah, like it's not driver." I found out it was not driver unload, right?
Unload. Yeah.
So I was like, "Okay." My off days were gonna be Wednesday, Thursday. I'm like, "Okay." So I was like, "All right, like let's do this, right?"
Mhm.
Paid my made the decision to stay, right? Um, and started working for JB Hunt driving in January. I know that the school thing, that whole singing thing, threw me off. Right,
Mhm.
I can't remember if once I started working, I was like, you know what, like I'm just gonna work out here and live out here and enjoy it, right,
Yeah.
and not worry about the school. Oh, because I had to sell my MacBook Pro in order to have money,
Money.
right?
Yeah.
I had to sell my MacBook Pro, which is what I had to make music on, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was. Okay, so that's why I think I fully ended up not going to school, is because I did not
Because
have the
you had.
computer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I
Um
remember that.
so yeah, I had sold my computer to be able to afford to live out there for a little bit longer, right? So started working in January, and things started looking up, right?
Mhm.
Started making some money. Um, like I said, my bills were low, my rent was low, so I was making decent money and not having to spend a lot of it on like living.
Mhm.
Um, and I really enjoyed driving in California because it was so beautiful, right? I drove, it was California, Arizona, or Nevada,
Mhm.
were the three states that we were delivered. And I just remember like driving up like through the grapevine and all that stuff. I'm just like, this is so beautiful, right? I would
Yeah.
record so much of it. Um and so I started working, right? Just chilling, living life, hanging out with you, whatever. I remember on my off days, I would drive down PCH, right, from like
Yeah.
Long Beach to Huntington Beach and South, right? And
Mhm.
I would just be recording, and I would just be like, "This is so beautiful, right? Like things are like good right now. It's so nice, right?"
Yeah.
Um, so January, February, um, February, COVID hit, right? I remember
Yeah.
I was at Sam's with you, okay, and
We
we
were?
were we it was either Sam's or Costco. I think it was Costco. I think it was Costco. Okay.
Okay.
Um, we were like eating a hot dog or whatever, right? My dad calls me and he's like, "Hey, like, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Good, you know." Okay, I love my dad, but like, he's a little like he's a paranoid person. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he calls me, "Hey, how you doing, mommy? I'm good. Like, how are you?" And he's like, "Have you heard about this stuff going on in China? Like this virus, they say it's gonna hit hard." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's crazy." I didn't know what he was talking about. I had not heard of it, okay?
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, that's crazy. Whatever, right? Okay, bye,
Mhm.
love you, right? And I swear, I don't know how many days later, the country shut down, right?
It was in
Um,
March. We shut down
you're
in
right.
March.
You're right. It started, I think, in China in February, and it
In
hit us in
f-
March.
it hit us in March.
Right. So that
Yeah.
conversation with my dad was in March. Right. A few days later, the world shuts down
Yeah.
for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was only a 2 week thing, if everybody remembers. Um, but
Mhm.
the world shuts down, right? And I was an essential worker. I kept working, right? So thankfully things for me didn't really change that much,
Yeah.
because I kept working. I kept being able to drive on my off days down the coast. Like things
Mhm.
didn't really change, right? Um, and I remember by that time I was kind of thinking about moving back home at some point.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember I had started being, well, I had already been on dating apps, but within the dating app, I was putting like had changed my location back to like Texas, be like, "Hey, like I live in California right now, but I'll be back in Texas, whatever, just seeing how it would meet," right?
Mhm.
Um, and then I'm kind of combining different situations now, but I remember that for work, um, March 30th, I went on a trip somewhere in like northern Nevada that was just a beautiful drive. Like I'm talking about like there's snow, there's not on the road, but like there's pine trees, there's like
Yeah.
mountains with snow. It was gorgeous, right?
Mhm.
Um and I remember it's so funny how like your mind remembers like very small details when it leads up to a big thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, I remember like driving home once I got back from working because like I would typically go out, stay out a night, come back the next day.
Mhm.
Um, Coming back, driving to where I was staying, and that next day, March 31st, I got a match on one of the dating apps, right? And it was with this one girl named Gabby that lived in Texas. um, and that's where I started talking with Gabby, right?
Mhm.
Um, she obviously was living in Texas. She was a teacher at the time, so she was not working because they weren't working, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we just like started talking like nonstop, right? Um, and I remember, okay, so I hate to say this about myself, but I'm a bit of a creep, right? Um, so, so I remember, like 2 weeks after we started talking, her birthday's, oh my god, her birthday is June 22nd, okay?
Okay.
And I remember like 2 weeks after we started talking, I had bought plane tickets to come see her for her birthday, right?
Okay.
Um, so COVID's in March. By June, everything's gonna be good, so we kept talking, and then I was like, okay, like I want to like move back, right? Like I want to move back to Texas, like I want to be with Gabby, whatever, right? Because we talked for 2 months before we met in person, right? And within those 2 months, she would not like be my girlfriend, right? So we were just talking, right?
Okay.
And she was like, no, like I want to meet you before like we do. Like she was okay with long distance. She just wanted to meet before, right?
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, okay, that's totally fine. But we were like talking every single day, right?
Right.
And it was one of those things where it's like we're not talking to anybody else. We're only talking to each other, right?
Okay.
So at that point, I started trying to move back sooner. Um, and so I was gonna work for the first company I worked for, right? Being a
Mhm.
local driver, but because of a stupid thing that happened with that company, they were like, "Oh no, we're not gonna hire you back," right? So I was like, "Well, crap, I can't go back there, right?"
Mhm.
Because I had talked to my old dispatcher, she was like, "Yeah, like we'll take you back," right? So I had told JB Hunt, hey, I'm gonna quit, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna give my 2 weeks. I'm moving back to Texas. Gave some sort of lie, and they were like, oh, like we would hate to see you leave. Like, you've been doing a really good job. You can transfer. You can try to transfer to a different account in Texas and still stay with the company, right? Um,
Oh.
so
Okay.
I was like, yeah. So I was like, no, like it's okay. Like I'm not gonna be able to drive when I go back to Texas. A lie. Because I was gonna work for the other company, right?
Okay.
So a few days later, the other company, I remember I was on my way to San Diego working, and I get a text from my old dispatcher saying like, "Hey, because of this, like they're not going to be able to hire you. Like, I'm really sorry, right?" And I was like, "Damn it! Like, there goes my
Mhm.
plan, right?"
Mhm.
Um, so then I text my current manager. I'm like, "Hey, like, turns out, I will be able to like keep my job. Like, I am interested in
In
moving to
transferring.
like in transferring to Texas, right?" So, um, I applied for like a couple of different accounts, Amazon, I think maybe Staples, Target was one of them, right? And I think you could only have a current like request for three different accounts at that time. So I put out the request to those accounts, and at that point, it was just waiting until one of those accounts had a position open up, right?
Okay.
It was like a wait list, right?
Right.
And so waited for a while. In mid May, I get a call from the manager that was at Target. It's like, hey, I'm gonna say a really weird detail. Okay, so this isn't the detail, but I remember I was at the Kia dealership. right? Getting a new battery or whatever. Again, those small details that you remember when it leads to
Mhm.
something. But I remember I was at the Kia dealership, and then I get a call from the guy. And he's like, "Hey, like, we're opening up a position. Like, I saw that you were on the wait list. Like, are you still interested? Um, it'd be work for Target, blah 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 blah."
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, I know you're in California, so obviously, so you get like I think a week to like move back or whatever, right?
Okay.
Once my current account was like, okay, you can transfer. I have a week to like drive back,
Move.
whatever, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Um, so I was like, yeah, let's do it, right? So I was really excited. I called Gabby and I was like, dude, I'm moving back. I'm moving back. And I remember she was with her best friend at the time, which I obviously hadn't met or talked to much, but I love that girl now. I love her so much. But I was like, I'm moving back. I'm moving back. And so her response wasn't like as excited because she was with her friend, right?
Uh-huh.
But I was like, okay, okay, I'll talk to you later, right? So my current account was like, okay, give us 2 weeks and then you can move, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, cool. 2 weeks go by. I moved back. I drove back as quick as possible so I could hang out with Gabby. And then March 31st was the first day we hung out in person, right?
Okay.
And um, it was the first day we were like, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" Yeah, whatever, right? I had made there's this company called I hope this is what I did if I remember. There's this company called Love Books, right? And it's a company where like you can kind of customize a book with like little cartoons or action figures, right?
Uh-huh.
And like I made up a little story. Yeah, I remember. I made up a little story, blah 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 blah. And at the end, I was like, "Will you be my girlfriend?" Right? And then she had made this frame that had like three different like star maps, right? And
Yeah.
one map was the star map where I was living the day that we met. One was hers in Texas, and then one I think was that day that we first met,
Met.
right? In
Uh-huh.
Texas, right?
Mhm.
And I remember it had a quote. I need to remember. I need to find where that frame is. It had a quote. I can't say it word for word, but the quote was basically saying like, "I love your feet because they have taken you everywhere you've been, and now they've brought you to me." Right? So
That's
it's
the
a really
gayest
cute.
shit I've ever heard.
What the gay thing is that while I was still in California, we were like looking at like engagement rings and whatnot, right? Super gay, super gay. Okay, so
Oh my
anyways,
gosh.
moved
No, but I love
back.
that. I love that.
Yeah, become official couple, whatever May. Um, get engaged in October.
Mhm.
I'm a fast forward now. Get engaged in October, and then get married the following October. Right. So now we're October 2021.
Yes.
Okay. Um. Yeah.
So you were working
I
from
was. Mhm.
March 31st until October 2021 or at
So
JB Hunt with Target.
I was from the beginning of June, because I
Uh-huh.
had that week before I started. The beginning of June on, I was working at the Target account as a
Okay.
driver. Okay, um, get married October of 21, right? And then I wanted to try to start getting kind of into the office, right? Like
Mhm.
management, more consistent schedule and whatnot, right? So in 2022 I tried to start like getting like a position in the office, whatever, right? Wasn't until June of 22 that I got like a training position, right?
Mhm.
um in the office at Target. And then in February of 23 officially got offered a manager position, right?
Mhm.
um and then in March was when I transferred to
The
the
other
other
account
account
that
that
you
I
didn't
hated,
like.
right? Because that account was always uh talked up as like it's an account where you're gonna go and train and you'll be able to move up really quick. Like it's an account that pumps people like really quick, right? And gets them promoted really quick. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay, yeah, fuck it, like I'll go, right? Um,
But
I
that
feel like
didn't happen.
yeah, my first 2 weeks there, I was on day shift. And I did learn a lot, right? But the position that I got transferred there to be was night shift, which I knew that, right?
Uh huh.
But night shift was 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., right? And so honestly, the year that I ended up working there, I never feel like night shift really got to me. Because like I would work 2 days, be off, work 2 days, be off 2 days.
Yeah.
Um, but on night shift, like I would literally just be dispatching drivers and answering phone calls. I did not feel like I was really learning anything at all, right? And
Oh.
and the managers were really just like
You,
micromanaging, and I didn't like their like vibe. I just didn't like
yeah.
their vibe, right?
Hmm.
Like sure, you're this thing that you did was nice, but the fact that it came from you pisses me off. Like I did not like it, right? So um I skipped over something. um
Yeah. Just skip over it for a reason.
no, I skipped over the fact that in November of 2022,
Hmm.
my wife got pregnant. We went through the whole ordeal
I
of
thought you
getting
did it on
pregnant.
purpose.
No, we did. Well, of course we did. We're
No,
gay.
skipping over it.
Oh no 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 no! I didn't skip over it on purpose. I legit
Oh, it
like
just didn't cross your mind.
yikes. Um,
We could edit that out. Like the whole.
no 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 no. So the reason that we did it was because my father-in-law had a heart attack in September of 2022, right? And I think he's in his low 50s, right? So it was like a heart
Wait, wait,
attack
wait, wait, wait. Low 50s? Are you meaning early
age,
50s?
early 50s. Yeah, early 50s as
Okay.
far as age, okay?
You and the sayings that you say sometimes, girl. I'm just like, what?
So crazy times. So he had a heart attack, right?
Okay.
And I remember that we went to go see him one day in the hospital, and he had to have like open like a quadruple bypass and whatnot, right?
Wow.
So yeah, so I remember that we went to go see him one day in the hospital, and my wife said to him, "Why are you having heart attacks? That's something that grandpas do, right?" And her dad said, "It's not my fault. I'm not a grandpa yet, right?"
Uh-huh.
And so we were just like, that's true, right? So then we were kind of like, and my parents weren't in the best health. They're a lot better now, right?
Hmm.
But we were kind of like, I really don't want for our parents to not be able to experience grandchildren for a good amount of time, right? So we were like, okay, let's try to do it, right? So we got a
Attempted.
sperm. Yeah, I got a sperm donor. Shopped online, um, and chose a sperm donor. And
Uh-huh.
the guy that we chose, first of all, we did really good choosing because he is cute. Um,
He
all credit goes to my wife. My wife says all credit goes to her, but yes. But whenever this, I don't know if this is TMI for some people, but whatever, this is my experience, right? Um, whenever you're shopping for sperm, right, it'll typically show you like a couple of pictures of when this donor was a child, right? And then it tells you like a full medical history. It tells you like what occupation their parents had, their grandparents had, any medical history the parents or grandparents have. You know what I mean?
hmm
Um, and it had a handwritten note from the donor, just kind of saying like, like whoever, if any children do come from like my donation or whatever, I just hope that they are a happy kid, and that like it was just a really cute note, right? And it had a voice message reading the letter, right? And so the guy that we chose. At first, my wife was trying to choose a donor that was like me, and I'm like, "You want a short and a fat donor? We're not doing that. If we get to choose the donor, we're trying to raise D1 babies here, okay?" All right, so
This is an investment, okay?
yeah, literally, right? But we chose a
D1 babies,
yeah,
that's crazy.
we chose a guy that he's half Puerto Rican, half Mexican, right? So my baby, although I am Puerto Rican, my wife is black. My baby is a quarter Mexican, right?
Woo woo.
Um, yeah, represent. Um, and he's 6'2". I think it said his weight was like 210, right? And the
So
two
he's
main reasons,
tall and
yeah,
lean. Okay.
no, tall and a little, well, I guess a little bit thick, no,
Yeah, but not like thick
tall and
thick.
not skin. No, not big. But two of the main reasons that we chose him, or I was pushing to choose him, was because one of his pictures as a kid, I even showed my mom, and I was like, this picture looks like what my dad would have looked like as a kid, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, it kind of like has a connection to features that would be in my family, right? Um, and this is really dumb, but the audio message, like he had a nice sounding voice. So we chose this guy and we bought two samples of
Uh
his donation, right?
huh.
We put two samples of his donation because we were going through a fertility clinic, not because my wife had any problems, but just because we wanted to try to make this work, right? Um, and so they were like, hey, like choose buy two samples if you can, because if the first one doesn't work, we still have the second one, right?
Hmm.
We're like, okay, so we bought two samples. And I'm gonna ask her, but we did IUI, which is just where the doctor will insert the sample higher up in your uterus than it would be able to naturally reach if you were just
Yeah.
naturally depositing a sample.
Hmm.
Um, um, so we did that, and I remember that procedure, which is literally just a 5 minute thing,
Thing, yeah.
was on the, I guess it could always be a 5 minute thing, but it was on the 1st of November, and they had given her some medicine to help like ovulate more eggs, like produce more eggs within her ovulation, for
Hmm.
better chances, right? And that specific medicine gives you false positives when you're testing to
Hmm.
see if you're pregnant, right? So that procedure was done on the first, and she had this medicine already, and um, when you're waiting for something, you're going to be testing every single day, right? Like
Hmm.
as much as you don't want to. Um, we tested every single day, and I remember that the pregnancy test, it would show like that positive at beginning, right? And then the line kind of fainted for like 2 days, and then it started picking up again, like the color of the line, right?
Hmm.
And I was like, I think you're pregnant. I think you're pregnant, right? And so it wasn't until I think, honestly, by the 9th of November, I was pretty positive she was pregnant. But I think around November 11th or so, she did like one of those digital ones that tells you pregnant,
Pregnant.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so we had some positive tests, and uh, but my wife was like, I don't know if I can believe this until she has the blood work, right?
Hmm.
So she got the blood work, and um, it came out that the numbers were where they had to be pregnant, right?
Hmm.
So God bless, she was pregnant, right? Um, this part I'll make sure to ask her. 5 weeks in, we had a bit of a scare because she woke up and there was like a pretty decent size spot of blood, right?
Hmm.
And this was like at 3 or 4 in the morning, right? And so like she had woken up and had gone to the restroom, and she was crying. But like I kind of hear her and I wake up and I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, look at the bed, and I'm like, okay, so let's go to the hospital, right?
Mhm.
Um, so she was like, no, like I'm just gonna wait until the fertility clinic opens up at like 8 or 9 in the morning, and she'll call them. And I was like, no, let's just go to the emergency room, right? They don't
Mhm.
open up for like 4 or 5 hours. Let's just go, right?
Mhm.
So I don't remember what I said, but I remember she had said like in the bathroom like that she was crying because this is what happens when you lose the baby, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, let's just go to the hospital, okay? Like,
Mhm.
try not to jump to any conclusions. Let's just go see, right? So we go, and here's a sidebar. I always joked around about wanting twins and saying it was twins, right? Always
Mhm.
joked around about that. Um, but I guess buried. I guess I'm spoiling it, right? We go to the hospital, right? They do blood tests, whatever, right? Take us to the back, and I don't know if you knew this. You probably did. Um, the doctor's like, everything is fine. You're reading to have twins, right?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And whenever he said that, I literally just said, "Oh my god!" Right? Because it was like the first time that I've ever like jokingly but seriously said something and then it was
Mhm.
true,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, my heart just started racing, right? Racing, 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 racing,
Yeah.
racing. I was like, holy shit, like, right? And so like everything was fine, right? Baby was safe. Um,
Babies.
baby's baby was safe because he told us that one of them is reading to have a heartbeat. The other one, it looks like it just has not developed a heartbeat yet, right?
Mhm.
Um, so we're like, okay, like it's still really early, 5 weeks pregnant, right? And we're
Mhm.
finding out that there's two. That is earlier than a lot of people even find out they're pregnant. Okay. Um, so we went to the fertility clinic afterwards, and our doctor does another like ultrasound, and she's like, yeah, there's two in there. And she had said that she would have known that one had a heartbeat because it was still too early for either of them to have a heartbeat, right? So we're
Mhm.
like, okay, okay, right? So some time goes on, and ultimately, I don't remember how much time went. Oh no, let me say this. Once we found out for sure, like doctor proven that pregnant twins,
With
right?
twins. Yeah.
Um, that day we told our parents, and I remember it was before Christmas. We told my mom, and because my mom had known about the whole process, right?
Mhm.
um and so I remember we were sitting like on like a counter at my mom's house, and I was telling her, that like um that because she didn't know that we were pregnant yet. I had not told her. She knew that we did the procedure, but I had not given her results, right?
Mhm.
And so I had told her like, you know, Gabby was testing positive, but we went to the hospital today because she had like some blood. And then my mom finishes the sentence and she's like, oh, like you lost it, right? Like the baby, right? And I was like, no, and it's twins, right? And like showed her the picture of the ultrasound, right? And she just starts screaming and crying, right? And then she just goes to Gabby and like gives her a big old hug, right? It's like, oh my god, right? And then she's just like, we have to go tell your dad. We have to go tell your dad, right? So like
Uh-huh.
we go to my dad's job and we tell him, right? And like he starts crying, right? And we tell our parents, we tell her parents as well. Um, and then like after that, we did find out that just one was developing a heart being healthy and the other one didn't develop, right?
Mhm.
And our doctor was like, this is like obviously not that it's good news that one wasn't developing, but she said like this is your graduation from the fertility clinic, right? Because we know that one of your babies is healthy right now.
Mhm.
The other one unfortunately didn't develop, but you have a healthy baby inside of you,
Mhm.
right?
As of now, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, we'll take it. Um, so so yeah, I mean, was pregnant for the 10 months that you're pregnant. Um, that's when I switched accounts and whatnot. You know what I mean? At work,
Mhm.
um, my baby was born, in the summer of 2023.
Mhm.
Um, and uh, that's when like I feel like a second depression wave hit in my life of not just like not because like I was a mom now, right? But just because of like I feel like the relationship between me and my wife at that point wasn't like the best, right? And then adding on the stress of like we're not really spouses right now, we're more like roommates and babysit no, not babysitters, but like we're more roommates and we're taking shifts taking care of our kid, right?
Mhm.
So for those first few months, like it was tough because like our baby would not sleep in the bassinet really, like so we were always holding him, and we would do like okay, like we have 8 hours until we have to wake up. Okay, you sleep for 2 hours and then you can be up for two and then I'll sleep for two. We were literally just taking shifts, right? Our life was just shifts. um and that was, I feel like, from the summer up until about November, December, things started getting a little bit better, right?
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
also weren't doing great financially because my wife wasn't working, right?
Mhm.
Um, and oh, because she had gotten laid off in January of 2023, right?
Mhm.
After she had been there for a year, which she
Mhm.
would have been able to do like FMLA or have maternity leave, right?
Mhm.
But she
Mhm.
got another job, and since she had only been there for a few months before she gave birth, she
Mhm.
wasn't going to be able to really do much. She wasn't really getting paid for a good portion of her maternity leave.
Mhm.
Um, and then, like November, December, things started getting better. She like found like a contract job, work from
Mhm.
home, because she didn't want to like put the baby
In
in
daycare.
daycare. Yeah. Um, and then I remember like New Year's Eve, we were like tearing up because we were like this year like ended up being so hard for us, right? Like
Yeah.
here's to like a much better 2024. Um, and then I feel like that catches up to where we kind of are right now. I will go into some details. I feel like I jumped over in the beginning of so me and music, right? That whole relationship with me and music, right?
Yeah.
After coming back from California in
Mhm.
2020, I feel like I told myself just don't try to make that the next thing that happens in your life, right?
Yeah.
Like just do it as a hobby, just
Mhm.
learn, take it easy, take it slow. What's for you is for you, right?
Right.
Um so always still having that dream of like I want to be a DJ, I want to be a producer, right? But just trying to mentally not make it such a like high priority in my life, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
um so I would work on like the music here and there, but never really like committed to something consistently. I would sign up for like online courses and I would start them, but would just stop doing them. Um, it just really became just that cycle of the cycle I was kind of talking about in the update episode of like, oh, like I'm envious of people that I see following their dreams, so let me
Yeah.
commit to it for a few weeks and then I stop, right? Um, and just a lot of that self discipline that I said I'm trying to work on this year,
Yeah.
just was not there at the beginning of 2023. I started uploading on TikTok, every single day,
Mhm.
just DJing videos, right? And I got like a good amount of followers. Like I went from like 100 to like 10K within like 2 months, right?
Mhm.
So like I was doing good, right? But I was posting every single day, right? And like Gabby would keep telling me that's not going to be consistent. You're not going to be able to keep that up, right? And I was like, yes, I will, right? So like I would post it every single day for I think for all of January, and then majority of February, I think, and then I think it's when I had to do a training for work that I was going to be like out of town,
Mhm.
and then I didn't pre-record anything, right? So then I missed a day, and then blah 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 blah, right? It just ended up falling off, just like everything else. Um, so the music stuff is always just kind of like I still have like that passion and that love for the music, right? I
Mhm.
just don't know what role music will end up having in my life, right? Because
Mhm.
I remember a few weeks ago I had told you about like, man, like just imagine if Aquí, Soña was turns into this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, cause like I was listening to a song and I'm just like saying like how much I love like just like like this deep love for the music. I'm just like I just don't know what role it will end up
It's
having in
gonna
my life.
play. Yeah.
Yeah. Because right now, catching it up to where are we? March of 2024.
Mhm.
Um, I like I think I said I don't know if it was at the beginning of this episode or the last episode. I'm back at the Target account, much happier with work.
Yeah.
Um, everything with the baby is a lot better. You know, he's super healthy, super big. Everything's like easier now. Like we're kind of living more of a normal life.
Mhm.
Things with Gabby are good. Like everything's kind of like on the up and
Settling
up,
in. Yeah.
as they say, right? Um, which like gives me the feeling of being able to start venturing into other things that I want to do, right?
Mhm.
So we'll start seeing how that goes. But I also started thinking about how in after my birthday of 2023, which I say something always happens around my birthday, right?
Mhm.
I was talking to Gabby about like, okay, because here's the ultimate truth, right? I'm not saying that this will happen, right? But I am a big dreamer, right? Dare I say a bold dreamer, right?
Yeah.
And I would say to Gabby that we are going to be billionaires one day, okay? Right?
Mhm.
Bold with the B, billionaires, right?
Okay.
And so I have like this big dream of like the truck stop thing, right? Because
Mhm.
if you look into who owns, sorry if nobody's going to relate to this, but if you look into who owns Love's Truck Stops, which is a big chain, Flying Pilot J Truck Stop, which is a big chain, and the
Mhm.
TA Truck Stops, which is a big chain, all of them, yes, are owned by old people, and they started in the 1960s, but all of them are have net worths in the billions, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and so it's not that I wanted to do this so only because obviously you can say you don't want money. You do want money because you want a better life, you want to help your family. You know
Right.
you can do so much with money, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not somebody that will say don't do it. Money is always going to be a part of it, right?
Mhm.
Um, but being a truck driver, right, working in the transportation industry and working with truck drivers, like I knew that truck drivers could be offered more on the
Mhm.
road,
Mhm.
right? Because like yes, there's some nice truck stops out there, right? But I feel like you could be better taken care of, right? Like which is what started the idea of like being able to have a truck stop, right? That had like top notch amenities, right? And this is something to where it would take a lot of money and a lot of time to build, right?
Yeah.
And so pulling it back to that October
Mhm.
of I know at some point I want to build a truck stop. I want it to be a franchise, and this is what's going to set us up and set up our family, right? For generations, right? I fully believe that, right? Um, but I always have like that desire to pursue something creative, right? Whether it's the music, whether it's something else, and I would always go through that battle of I need to focus on what I know will end up making us money versus something that like I like to like do and will have fun with, right? And um I don't remember what Gabby had told me, but ultimately in a conversation with myself I told myself that I was going to allow myself to I told myself that I was going to allow myself to pursue something creative guilt free for a certain amount of time, right?
Mhm.
And so I was like, this year time that I gave myself will probably change, but I was like, you know what? You're young, pursue something creative 10 years without any guilt of worrying about building a truck stop, of like that
Mhm.
you're not working on that, blah 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 blah, right?
Mhm.
Which Aki Sueña was born shortly after that,
After
right?
that, yeah.
And I feel like knowing that I had that conversation with myself and that decision to pursue something creative guilt free has helped with continuing this and knowing that this is not making us any money right now, but I love doing it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like it has helped with that.
Yeah.
But with life kind of the pieces are shifting together, right? I have not stressfully been thinking about the truck stop, but just thinking about like I know that there's probably stuff that I can either look up and get information
Mhm.
or just start writing down that once I'm to the point where I can work on this because either have the money, have whatever, right?
Mhm.
That I'll be in a better position because like if I take these next 10 years to just slowly also draw up a plan or
Mhm.
steps, right?
Mhm.
Once I start working on it, I'm not working on trying to draw up a plan, right? I
Right.
work on starting to initiate that plan, right?
Yeah.
So I've just been thinking about the little things that like we can put into motion now that ultimately ends up helping, right?
In the
So
end,
I've
yeah.
just yeah, so I've just been like just learning what type of licenses you need to own a gas station, right?
Mhm.
I've been just thinking about, what can I actually work on now that will ultimately help, right?
Mhm.
And so this first step that I believe is a very important first step for us, like my wife and I, that we it's the first step we're doing in our own lives right now too,
Mhm.
is working on our credit, right? Um, because like once the time comes where I have a business plan and I need a loan,
They have to look at your credit.
they're gonna
Yeah.
want to see a pretty credit score, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay,
And a
awesome.
business plan.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hmm So what Gabby and I are trying to work on first, our credit score actually ends up being what I feel would need to be improved on for the business as well, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, my life right now is happy at work, right? Happy at home, just looking in little pieces of what will ultimately lead to um the truck stop, right?
Mhm.
Trying out some different ventures. And everything I feel right now is pretty good. And I'm also a very visually motivated person. And a while ago, Gabby and I randomly came across this neighborhood. And it is a neighborhood I did not know existed. And if you look it up, it was at one point known as the wealthiest like town in Texas.
Okay.
Um, and the houses there are oof, so nice. Like houses that I'm talking about have separate entrances labeled for deliveries only. Like
That's crazy.
houses that if you look them up, because not trying to be a creep, but like I'm like, this is a nice house. I just want to see about the house, right? See how much it was going on sale for, right?
Uh-huh.
It says this house has a car wash. A lot of them have elevators. Like gorgeous, obviously multi-million dollar houses, right? And it's just like that's that's
You're
really
like, that's
nice.
gonna be me in 10 years.
hmm Maybe not in 10
S-
years, but 20.
Okay.
10 to get the truck stop going, you know what I mean? And then
And then
I'll 20, yeah. 20 puts me at what, 48? I am perfectly fine becoming a very wealthy person by the time I'm 50.
yeah.
That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine.
You're like, I'm good with that.
I'm good with that. Yeah. But yeah, that's I feel like my life story from after high school
So
to
now.
now.
Mhm.
10 years, right? 10 years, yeah.
Yeah. And
All
look at all
right.
that you've done,
Thank you
dude.
guys for listening.
And
Yeah,
that's it. We're done. You
yeah,
see,
no,
I didn't
I
even
do. Yeah, I know.
miss.
You
It's
didn't
only
even
gonna
ask me
be
a question. It's hour.
It's only gonna be 15 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And look,
Yeah, yeah. I do feel like somebody who is a big dreamer. Sometimes I do struggle with the whole like, I have not accomplished enough. Like, oh, big dreams.
your expectations.
Yes, my expectations. I know that I have accomplished a lot of beautiful things in my life. And con-
Maybe, go ahead.
like continue to stay motivated to accomplish a lot of things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not somebody that feels like age is a big factor for what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not something I'm too worried about. I'm definitely just right now, I know I'm in a good place personally, um, to where I know that I feel like I have a good support system, um, and a better vision of what it's gonna have to be like to chase my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
To know that like I'm not going to become a millionaire tomorrow unless I win this like $1.4 million Powerball. 1.4 billion dollar Powerball. Sorry. I'm not gonna become a millionaire today, tomorrow, or the next day.
Yeah,
Um,
unless.
I unless win the lottery, which I actually hate. I don't hate. I don't like when my parents are like, "Yeah, I'm gonna buy this like Lamborghini when I win the lottery," right? I'm like, no. Make a plan of what you want to do in life that's gonna make it to where you have enough money to do that, right? I'm always like, nothing that I dream of is going to be because I won the lottery, right? It's going to be because I'm creating this that is going to generate the wealth, right? Um, but a better vision of how long it's going to take, not how long, but that it's going to look differently to follow my dreams, um, and all that stuff. So, still a very motivated person, a little bit less delusional as to how quickly things will happen, but still
Mm-hmm.
delusional to the point enough to keep me motivated to say
Yeah,
that I will be a billionaire one day.
good. See,
Woo!
I think you did good. Like
That's my story. I know.
and you're gonna keep pushing. I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing. I also think that we should definitely address, this is like sidebar.
Mhm.
But we should definitely address adjusting our expectations,
Mhm.
because I feel like that would be a good conversation for you to have,
Mhm.
because you have these expectations and you're like, I haven't met them, so therefore I'm not successful. And
Uh huh.
it's so black and white with you. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
no, like it's a process. It's a
Okay, so what's the conversation
process.
you want to have?
Huh?
What's the conversation you want to have?
About like adjusting expectations.
Okay.
Like for another episode.
Oh, okay, 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 okay.
Yeah,
Expectations. I got
yeah,
you. I
yeah.
got you. Yeah, yeah. Um.
Because I feel like that happens a lot when
Mhm.
we're talking about like our dreams and our goals, and like
Mhm.
we have to adjust sometimes.
I mean, yeah, and it's. I've definitely struggled with the not meeting of expectations because it has been my dream to be a DJ and a producer since I was 12 years old. Like I remember I went up to my dad because he was a DJ too, and I was like, "Hey, you want to start teaching me, or can you start teaching me, right?" And he was like, "Yeah." And that was when I was 12 years old, So 16 years later, sometimes looking at that and seeing that I have accomplished not a
But
lot
you have.
not a lot with DJing and producing is like,
But you
wow, like,
have. You
mm,
produced,
okay, not accomplished what I thought I would have accomplished by this time.
and that's where you have to adjust the
Right.
expectations.
It's tough sometimes, but like I was saying, I feel like with different parts of my life taking shape ways that I just didn't have expectations at all for it,
Mm-hmm.
um helps feel more confident that
Mm-hmm.
like I can continue to pursue these other things in a different way, different timeline, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's still works. Still, I'm always gonna have something to chase in my life. I don't think I'll ever be
And
somebody
that's
that's
how it
just
should
like,
be.
yeah,
I don't think
yeah,
anybody should be comfortable being where they're at. I think people should
yeah.
continue to want to grow, whether it's in their knowledge, whether it's finances, whether it's in their lifestyle. You
Yeah.
should always want to grow, you
So
know?
it's gonna be me. Always gonna be a big dreamer. Always a tad
Love
bit
that.
delusional, but I love that for myself.
The Delulu.
Yes, yes, that's me.
I know.
And I know we've talked about this before, and I don't know where I'm going with this. But just that, and I wonder what it is within our minds. Maybe it's the way we were raised. That's like our parents never really told us no or whatnot, right? But the whole feeling of like destined for greatness thing is just something I'm just like I just know that like not that my life is bad, right? But I just know that I have no idea how high I'm gonna go, right?
Yeah.
And it's just something that's rooted in there somewhere that is
Yeah.
just
And I think our destiny, like, I think we have different expectations of the destined for
mhm
greatness because for me, it's
mhm
just like, I want to make an impact. And I don't care if I make an
mhm
impact on one individual
mhm
or 10,
yeah
or
I
50 or
completely
100 or whatever, like I
mhm
just know that I want to be impactful and I want to
mhm
inspire change and hopefully I get to do that,
yeah
you know?
yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I feel like you already do. You just don't know you do. But yeah, I feel like sometimes you don't
We're not talking about me. We're
realize.
not talking about me.
No, 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 no. I don't mean you. I mean people in general. Sometimes
Oh,
people
okay.
in general don't realize how people look at them and their actions and what they've accomplished. Right?
Because people don't have those conversations
Mm-hmm.
more than they should. And I think like that's why for me with my friendships, like with my
Mm-hmm.
friendships with you, I want to be that, right? I'm proud of you. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you're
Mm-hmm.
not where you wanted to be or where you thought that you would be, but like I'm
Mm-hmm.
still proud of you and you've done so many things and you've accomplished so many things. Like even with Jasmine too, I'll be like girl, you're doing it. Like I'm proud
Mm-hmm.
of you.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
making an impact and like
Yeah.
thank you for making me smile today or whatever. You know what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean?
yeah. So like, a lot of people don't realize that they actually have like positive
Yeah.
effects on people's lives. So you're out here just thinking like, oh, like like my life, I don't really do much, but like
Mhm.
actually, you motivated this person to start living their dreams, right? Like
Yeah.
you at a very early episode, I believe, had said that whenever you posted you were doing this podcast, a cousin or somebody said, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
doing a podcast? That's really cool. You know what? I'm gonna start mine." Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't even know what's happening, but
I don't know if he has his,
it's okay. But
but
he got
he,
that little itch to do
yeah, yeah,
it.
definitely. No,
Yeah,
definitely.
but
He did. I hope
but
he does.
I appreciate you wanting to do this. I mean, it's always kind of crazy to live down memory lane and think about all the things that have happened, that haven't happened, that will happen, that are different than what you expected. Because I didn't know if I was gonna ever get married or have kids. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Here we are, married and kids, a kid. But
Married with a child,
hmm
working,
hmm
living
hmm
your life.
hmm living
You've done so
and
much.
yeah, and talking about the whole like I've always wanted to quit my job and work on a dream full time.
Hmm.
Um, my wife has always been the type of person that is like the type of person that's like realize the benefit of just having that job for an income stream, and then just make sure that like when you're not working you are working on the
You're,
things you want, your dreams,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
But she's very big on like you can work somewhere and you don't have to make it a career. Look at it as just this is my income stream so that I can afford to work on my dreams,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
um so my wife's a really big supporter. Like I can tell her the craziest things that I want to do, and she's like, okay, figure out what step one is. Because she has her dreams as well, and hers are more like they're still like really good dreams. Like she wants to have a little store and whatnot, and like they still require
Work.
work and
Yeah.
whatnot, right? Um, but she has her dreams, and she's always like a very big supporter for me. I'm a big supporter for her, so it works out. Like I said, I think with my job being in a good place, raising my child being in a better place, whatnot, I think it's opening some doors to see if we can make something shake. You know?
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that's all I have to say. Um,
Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me on your podcast. It was so nice. We should do this again.
We definitely should when you give
there
us an
will
update.
be there will be a Sammie episode at some point. Because I feel like there's a lot about you that maybe I don't know as well, or I don't know. I don't know.
No, you know
No,
everything.
that's nice. Um,
Is
but no, it was. um, it was nice to go down memory lane and just share it with our dreamers here and see that like
Yeah.
like we talked about with Lupe, the timeline for your dreams will probably change.
Yeah.
Your dreams will probably change because Lupe wanted to be a movie star,
And
right?
now she's like, I want to be a professor. I
Yeah.
want to be a
So
doctor.
yeah,
Yeah.
life changes, dreams
Even with
change.
Jasmine,
Yeah.
too. I mean, she was like, I want to
Yeah.
be a hairstylist. And now she's
Hairstylist in
like,
Vegas.
I want to do this now.
Right.
So
So
she wants to work with immigrants and stuff.
it's gonna be very interesting to see, like, we're saying this now, but what's gonna change within us where in
Yeah.
5-10 years we're like, man, remember that episode where I said I wanted to do a truck stop and now I actually own a clothing company or some shit.
Yeah. Or like now me and my
Something
wife
crazy.
open up like little pop-ups and
Yeah, just something crazy. So I mean, it's always that always excites me to not know where life is gonna take me.
yeah.
But knowing that there's still always chance, like there's still always the next day to be able to help your life go where you want to go. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm a big I love motivational stuff. I love inspirational stuff. I love looking at houses that I want to have one day. Um, and I'm a big dreamer. I mean, it all who I am all boils down to why this podcast was started and what this
Mhm.
podcast is. So yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Ashley.
thank you, Sam.
You have to stop recording.
Actually, I know I was technically the dreamer of the day, but do we want to
Nah,
save
we
that
could
for a
save it.
topic episode? Okay, okay, okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to our podcast.
Thank you
We forgot to
guys.
say this at the end of the last one, but hey, follow us,
So like and
email us,
subscribe.
like and subscribe. Like, we're here and we're still growing. But yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.